Hey, what's up, and welcome to the Nutrition Kitchen, the science behind. I'm with my nutrition guru, Sahra Pak.
Well, let's get to it. Ready-to-eat breakfast cereal is a loaded topic. Tell me what you have been going with, Chef Falarn.
So we got level 1. It's not my Frosted Flakes since we're all about oats today. So I subbed in a Honey Nut Oats cereal. And then also we have level 2, our muesli, and level 3, do-it-yourself cereal, both overnight oats and steel-cut oats topped with sliced almonds and blueberries. So what's the story with this Honey Nut Oat cereal?
Well, in order to find out the whole story about this ready-to-eat breakfast cereal or any other packaged products, we have to check out the fine print, aka the ingredients list. There we'll find what is in the food.
All right, well, this cereal has whole grain oats, sugar, cornstarch, honey, brown sugar syrup, salt, tripotassium phosphate, canola oil, and natural almond flavor.
So whole grain oats are the first ingredient, so that's great. When you see the word whole, like whole wheat or whole oat on the ingredients list, it includes all parts of the oat, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And that means it has all the beneficial nutrients of a whole oat, including proteins, carbohydrates, unsaturated fats, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. Just as important, even products made from whole grains or whole grain oats can have other ingredients added to them. So Keon, what do you think of those other ingredients?
Well, I don't really know what tripotassium phosphate is, but I know sugar is one of those things that I should avoid, right?
Right, added sugar, that is. And actually there are 3 forms of added sugar in this cereal. Added sugar comes in a multitude of forms. In this cereal we have sugar, and then a couple of ingredients later, honey, and then brown sugar syrup is added too. Syrup can come in a relatively natural form like 100% maple syrup, or it can come from processing beets or sugarcane or other plants. But either way, any syrup, whether it is spelled with a Y or an I, and whether it is made from corn or brown rice or any other food, is considered an added sugar. A few other names for added sugars that you might see on an ingredient list include dextrose, glucose, fructose, sucrose, and sorghum. From a nutrition standpoint, we should either avoid these or use as little as possible. That might be easier to understand once we know where sugar comes from or how it's processed. Most added sugar in the US comes from sugarcane, beets, and corn. We'll use sugarcane as an example. Sugarcane is a plant that grows in tropical regions. In order to get sugar, harvested sugarcane is first partially refined into raw sugar. They process the sugarcane to extract its juice. The juice is then boiled back down to a thick syrup. Tiny seed sugar crystals are added to the syrup, which grows into larger crystals of raw sugar. Then a centrifuge separates the raw sugar crystals from the syrup. The syrup that's left behind is what we call molasses. The raw sugar is then further refined to remove any impurities. The result is a pure, colorless syrup composed of sugar and water. Then they add seed crystals and centrifuge it again to separate the crystals from the syrup. Then the crystals are dried in a machine called a drum, kind of like a giant laundry dryer.
I guess that sounds appetizing.
Well, it might not taste as good to you once you know how it's made, and the potential effects sound like a drug commercial. Added sugar. Side effects may include obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cavities, increased triglycerides, and more. You may become addicted to sugar. Be sure to speak with your physician before starting added sugar. All joking aside, it's a great example of the huge impact that food processing has on nutrition, turning a level 2 or level 3 food into what we call a mission top threat. And we eat a whole lot of it. The average American consumes a whopping 68 pounds of refined cane and beet sugar every year.
You said 68 pounds?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Combine that with the 52 pounds of corn sweeteners the average American consumes each year, and it turns out that by weight, Americans eat more added sugar than any other food type other than milk and wheat flour.
That's crazy and sounds nasty. So that's what, like a third pound of sugar every single day?
Yes, and this is about how much that is. Almost half of that comes from sugar-sweetened beverages like soda, sweet tea, sports drinks, and sweetened coffees. But processed foods like ready-to-eat breakfast cereals are common sources of added sugar too. It's literally everywhere.
Wow, so I'm definitely guilty of some of those. How can I cut back on that and eat less sugar?
Well, I'm going to show you. Pick up that cereal and look at the nutrition facts label. An FDA ruling from 2016 that recently took full effect requires that all foods with a nutrition facts label must list the amount of added sugars per serving. Find carbohydrates. Just below that is fiber. And just below that is total sugars. And below that is added sugar. This is one of the most important pieces of information to look for on a food label. You should choose foods with as little added sugar as possible. It's also important to know that single ingredient sugars like honey and maple syrup aren't required to show added sugar as an amount in grams. Lastly, there are a few foods that we consider similar to added sugars from a nutrition standpoint, but that aren't technically labeled as added sugars on the nutrition facts label. These are 100% juices and 100% juice concentrates, including those used to make jellies, jams, and preserves.
Okay, I think I got it. So I'll make sure I'll avoid all sugars.
Not all sugars. Remember, we are talking about added sugars. Most added sugars are highly processed with all beneficial nutrients stripped away. There's a few exceptions to this rule, like honey and maple syrup, which may retain some nutrients. But there are some foods that naturally come with sugars that are level 3, like many fruits. The sugar itself isn't what determines the level. It's the whole sugar package, or everything else in the food that comes with the sugar.
So what about the whole package for sugarcane, since we talked about that one already?
Well, sugarcane hasn't been well studied in regards to human nutrition, but in theory, sugarcane has a lot of level 3 components that make it a decent whole package. After the inedible husk is removed, sugarcane is 70 to 75% water, 10 to 15% fiber, and 13 to 15% sugar, and it has a lot of beneficial phytochemicals.
So you've mentioned phytochemicals before, some sort of chemical plant defense mechanism, but you keep saying beneficial. Why is that?
Phytochemicals are a difficult concept to understand, so let's start from scratch. Phyto is Greek for plant, so phytochemicals refer to naturally occurring plant chemicals. But in technical terms, phytochemical only refers to plant chemicals that improve the plant's chance of survival, not plant nutrient chemicals like fats, carbs, or protein. So we think of phytochemicals as chemical weapons of plant defense. They were likely made to help stave off predators like humans from eating the plant. Some phytochemicals can be deadly, like ricin, a phytochemical from the castor bean. Some make us uncomfortable, like phytochemicals from poison ivy or hot peppers. But it appears that humans have become tolerant of some phytochemicals that have a much more mild effect. In fact, a leading theory is that these mild dietary phytochemicals provide a minor stress to our body recovers, and then it becomes stronger. It adapts to better deal with future stresses. This concept is called hormesis. Another example of hormesis is exercise. Exercise breaks down some muscle tissue, but you eventually recover and get stronger, right?
Yeah.
It's a positive minor stress. There are over 10,000 phytochemicals, and they only come from plants. Many phytochemicals have antioxidant properties, but their benefits go far beyond that, including protection against heart disease, aging, cancer, and so much more.
Wait, so eating plant phytochemicals can reduce my risk of getting cancer? That's crazy.
I know, right? That's what I call plant strong. But many of these same benefits are not present in highly processed plant foods, like added sugar. That's why the whole sugar package matters so much. A food like sugarcane has all these level 3 components, but the processing essentially removes all of the package except sugar. We go from whole package to no package.
Okay, so sugarcane can be level 3, and added sugar might be level 1 or maybe 0. But sometimes that sugar does taste good and I just gotta have something sweet, I can't lie.
I know, I hear you. Me too. For those of us with a sweet tooth, we suggest sugar in a level 3 package, like fruit. But if that isn't cutting it, try to use as little added sugar as possible, or pair small amounts with level 3 foods to make them taste better. Remember, we're eating 123 pounds of this stuff a year. You don't have to quit cold turkey.
Well, I guess that brings us to our upgrades then.
Yes, our 2 upgrades, muesli and both do-it-yourself cereals, have a level 3 ingredient in common: whole oats.
Okay, but my cereal contains whole oats too. Why are these options upgrades aside from the other ingredients?
One word: structure. It turns out food structure is pretty darn important.
Oh, why is that? Doesn't food all end up in the same place? It goes in my stomach, right?
Yes, it does. But our body absorbs it differently depending on its structure. Consider our intact whole grain compared to flour. When you eat the intact whole grains, you have to chew them into small pieces, then swallow it. Then enzymes in your stomach help break it down over the course of several hours. But this flour has already been broken down into tiny particles for you. Even after it is reformed into cereal, it gets digested much faster. This causes you to get hungry earlier, blood sugar levels to rise much faster, and it minimizes the leftover food that can act as fuel for beneficial gut bacteria.
Okay, so I want to eat foods as close to their native structure as possible. And I can't eat oats straight out of the field, or can I?
No, please don't try that. Some degree of food processing is necessary for certain foods, including oats. Let's talk about oat processing. After the indigestible husk is removed, the oats go into an oven called a kiln. The high temperature of the kiln does 4 things to the oats. 1, it kills any bacteria, yeast, or mold. 2, it inactivates enzymes that can break down fats and lead to spoiling if the oat is later milled. This is especially important because oats have more fat than other grains. 3, it destroys a small amount of heat-sensitive vitamins. And 4, it helps develop flavors in the oats. Overall, the benefits of this process far outweigh the negatives. The end result is intact whole oats called oat groats. Steel-cut oats are just oat groats cut into pieces, and rolled oats, like in our muesli and overnight oats, are just steel-cut oats that have been flattened. And instant oats are just thinner versions of rolled oats that may be partially cooked already. Quick cooking steel-cut oats are cut into much smaller pieces, and oat cereals like this one use oat flour.
I never knew.
All forms of the oats have the same nutrients, but the more intact structure of these oats is why these oats have leveled up.
Okay, I got it. And now that I know my way around the nutrition label, overnight oats are an upgrade over muesli because there's less added sugar, right?
Yes, unless you add a lot of honey. There's also no preservatives. However, some muesli options like this one are basically level 3 too.
Okay, and what about the nuts and fruit that are in both of these?
Both are level 3 foods, whether the fruit is fresh or frozen. Most fresh or frozen fruit doesn't have any added sugar. It's the dried and canned fruit options you have to be careful about. More on that another time.
Okay, I got it. Well, thank you so much, Sahra. As always, I learned a lot. So gear up for episode 3, where we level up pancakes and syrup. We're out of here. Okay, let's go.